We cannot go to therapy to fix someone else or to make someone else feel better. We can only go to therapy to work on ourselves. There seems to be more and more talk online about narcissism. And today I want to specifically answer a question about what it's like to be married to someone who is a narcissist. If you're new here, my name is Kati Morton and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And today's question is, Kati, what do you do about a narcissistic spouse who refuses marriage therapy because he feels we don't, quote unquote, need it? But we so clearly do. He also promises change, and then changes only occur for a day or two. Then it's back to the same shit. I've been in therapy for 8 years, and I feel like I'm going to therapy for the both of us. That is important. Remember that piece, okay? I also do everything my therapist suggests, and she basically has told me that I've exhausted all her advice. I don't know what to do, but I don't want to get divorced. We have 2 kids together, 3.5 years and 5 months old, and we've been together for 12 years. And I've been through his recovery from drugs and 2 withdrawals of his. And he's been sober for 9 years now. We've been through a lot together, and I've stuck through it all. I do love him. I'm not a quitter, and I don't come from a family of divorce, but I'm at a loss. I feel like I'm putting in all the work, and it's exhausting. Help. There's so much to unpack here. Now, first, I want to address what a narcissist is, because I feel like people throw around that term a lot, and unfortunately, some people are just assholes. Other people are narcissists, and they do exist, but let's talk about what that is really briefly. Now, someone who is a narcissist has a very elevated sense of self. They don't have empathy for other people. That's a huge piece. And for most of us, it's really hard for us to understand how you cannot care what someone else is going through. But people with actual NPD or narcissistic personality disorder don't care how other people feel. They only care about getting their own needs met. Okay? That's why we want to hold on to that too, because that's really important. And because narcissists only care about getting their own needs met, they can use a lot of varying behaviors to manipulate us to, again, get what they want. So that could mean that they love bomb, showing us an intense amount of affection, pretending, saying they're going to change and making change for a brief period, all to get us to believe that, and then we're more easily, persuaded to do what they want. They can also kind of do like splitting behavior where they'll like throw us under the bus or think we're amazing. And that can be really confusing and difficult. They can use gaslighting techniques like you're remembering things wrong. There's a lot of things that they can do, again, to get their own needs met first. Narcissists always put themselves first. That's why they can't apologize. They don't actually care how you feel. So their apologies will be like, I'm so sorry you feel that way. Then they'll kind of gaslight. They're like, well, I didn't remember it that way, but I'm sorry if that's what you're thinking. I'm sorry if, right? No acknowledgement of guilt, no admission of any wrongdoing. That's in a nutshell what a narcissist is. Is there more to it? Yes, I have tons of videos about that if you want a deeper dive. But for the sake of this question, it's important that we understand that that's who this person's spouse is. She's saying that he's a narcissist, doesn't want to go to marriage therapy because we don't need it. Okay, that's what a narcissist is. Let's move into therapy and narcissists, because people don't talk about that very often. But most likely, a narcissist is not going to go to therapy because, you guessed it, they don't think anything's wrong with them. It's wrong with you. It's something you've done, right? They can't apologize. They can't take ownership over their behavior. They are not the problem. The people in their life are the problem. That's the way they view the world. That's why it can be so painful to be with them. And that's why in the case of this question, this person's saying like, I want to go to therapy, but he doesn't think that we need it. Of course, because he doesn't think he's done anything wrong. I'd love to hear in the comments if you have different experiences. But in my experience, narcissists will only find themselves in therapy because they think that they're going to like prove that they're right or that the other person's wrong. Like they'll go once or twice with their partner or spouse because they've just had like, I don't know, a suicide attempt or a really difficult time, postpartum depression. They might go a little bit for that, but that has nothing to do with anything being wrong with them. That's really the only way I see it playing out, or if they're forced through a court order, okay? So that is probably why. That'd be my guess. My knee-jerk reaction as to why he thinks you don't need it, because he doesn't see anything wrong with him or the relationship, because again, elevated sense of self. But remember that thing I told you to hold on to about this question? The portion where she said, oh, I've been in therapy for 8 years and I feel like I'm going to therapy for the both of us. Now we're going to kind of move out of narcissism and into relationships and relationship building. A key piece of any healthy relationship is shared burden. And maybe I don't want to call it burden, just shared work for the relationship. Now, when someone goes to therapy and you feel like you're going to therapy for both of us, but the other spouse isn't present, that's never going to work. We cannot fix other people or make things better for someone else. We can only work on ourselves in therapy. I'm going to say that again because I want you to hear it. We cannot go to therapy to fix someone else or to make someone else feel better. We can only go to therapy to work on ourselves. And so if you feel like you're going to therapy for the both of you, that means that your partner needs therapy and you as a couple probably need therapy like this. And I'm not saying this person doesn't know this, but that to me was a huge red flag, because the problem with that belief that like I'm going to therapy for the both of us is that by you going to therapy that you can fix the relationship. But you're only 50% of the relationship. So you can only fix 50% of it. Sure, we can work on our communication skills and our ways of interacting, and we can be a more compassionate and caring partner. But if they're not changing, then 50% of the relationship isn't shifting at all. And we're still going to have the same problems because, again, 50% of the problem is still there. Does that make sense? Because too often I find that one member of a partnership will go into therapy and really the main issue is the relationship. But they don't get into couples counseling, which is what they should do, where the couple is the actual client in the therapy setting and situation, so you can work on it together. Instead, they think, well, if I get better, then the whole relationship will improve. And that's never the case. Yes, one member of a partnership can be the one that is potentially causing more angst, right? Let's say, like she's saying her husband's been sober. So let's say he wasn't, someone who's the addict in the family is part of the problem, but also our reaction to that addict is part of the problem too. Does that make sense? We're all part of the problem when it's a relationship. We all have our role. I think that's why I like talking about the family dance, but we call a couple dance too, right? We do these certain behaviors with each other. We move together to the music we've created so that we work together. And whatever that dance is, even if it's toxic, even if it's painful, we know how to do it. And just because we stop doing it doesn't mean the music is stopped or that our partner stopped doing that dance. We're just stepping on their toes and causing chaos, right? It can be really uncomfortable. And it's not really going to get better unless they learn the new steps too. Does that make sense? I just love to visualize it that way because I don't know many dances. I'm not a very good dancer. And so I imagine myself stepping on Sean's toes while he's trying to do like two-stepping or something. And I don't know how to do that. So that's why we cannot go to therapy for both of us. We can only go to therapy for ourselves. And without the participation of a partner in the betterment of the relationship will not get better. So that was the big piece to me for this question, was that you both need to be in therapy. And if he won't participate, unfortunately, I do not believe things will get better. Okay? And that's why your therapist is like, I think you've exhausted all my advice, because you're doing everything you can. But it's like running into a brick wall if we just keep doing that, right? We're not going to get anywhere. We're just hitting our head into the same thing because our partner's not moving with us. But here is the final thing I want to discuss, is not wanting to get a divorce because you have kids and you've been through a lot together and you've stuck through it all with him and you're not a quitter, okay? Now, people who don't want to get divorced, I respect that. We do take vows. I hold those very dear. I know not everybody does, and that's your own choice. There's no judgment here. But I respect your decision to not want to get a divorce. However, I believe you need to be really honest with yourself whether or not you're going to be happy in this relationship if nothing changes. I know that's hard to hear. I know that's hard to think about, but that's really where we're at. If he won't go to therapy and he won't work on things to improve it, then what we've got is what we're going to get, okay? When anybody tells me that they don't want to get divorced because of the kids, my response is almost always, I think you maybe should get divorced for the kids. Because the thing that this kind of delusion that parents have is, and yes, I know I don't have children. I know people might get angry already. Well, you don't have children, so, essentially shut the fuck up. But hear me out. When we stay together for the kids, what happens is our children grow up in an environment where mom and dad or mom and mom, the parents are not happy and not having a healthy relationship. And so our children grow up thinking that that is the ideal or the quote unquote healthy relationship when it really isn't. And that to me is more dangerous than having real conversations with our children about relationships, and that sometimes they end, and then watching us maybe in the future potentially engage in healthier relationships, or watching us navigate this in as kind of a way as we can with our ex-spouse or ex-partner. That to me is way healthier for children. I don't know if any of you are children of divorce. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but that's what I believe to be a better thing to do. Don't hang on to a relationship for the kids. The kids need to see what healthy dynamics are like, what a real relationship looks like, so that they can create that in their own life going forward. Okay? And then the final component of this, that you've stuck through it all. When anybody ever tells me like, but I've been with them through all of this and I've stuck through it. We have so much history together. There's a huge part of me as a therapist who always thinks that maybe that's a piece of our own personality or what we define ourselves as. It's a huge part of who we believe we are, is the person who sticks it out, doesn't give up. Sometimes that has probably really served us well, right? Especially when it comes to jobs, probably school and career-based things, even maybe sports growing up. When we stick things out and we push through, we persevere, that's seen as a good trait, right? For a second, let me tell you a little story, okay? Imagine that you're standing on the edge of a riverbank and you have put this weight attached to your ankle and you've hooked it back on the dirt because you have to go right to the edge in order to scoop water up to bring it back for your family, okay? So right on the edge of this like raging river, and we have this big weight and it's hooked in on the dirt behind us. And for years we use this technique and it really holds us and keeps us safe and it feels good. But then one day, all the dirt washes out. The river swoops in this big wave, washes all the dirt out from underneath your feet and under your anchor and pulls you into the river. And at that point, you realize that anchor is going to kill you. It's going to drown you. It's pulling you down and there is nothing you can do because you have this huge weight attached to your foot. And so in order to survive, sometimes we have to let go. We have to unhook that weight. We have to get our key out and release it. And sometimes that is a relationship. There are times when it could have saved us, or a definition of self, right? If perseverance is who I am, for years that could have helped me move forward. That could have helped me get water out of that river. It could have helped me survive and get a good job or graduate at the top of my class. But sometimes those attributes that are beneficial in one situation, in another situation become detrimental. And I always am suspicious when someone's like, but this is what I do. I stick it out. I don't give up on people. I understand that that's probably part of how you define yourself, but I wonder if that's now like that anchor in the water and it's pulling you down and it's actually doing more harm than good. It's kind of like the way I talk about coping skills, right? We self-injury, eating disorders, even addiction to alcohol and drugs. There's a time in our life when those things serve a purpose, right? They actually help us. They numb us out, give us something else to focus on until we get through the tumultuous time. But then there comes a time where, like, let's say that raging river gets calm again. We don't need it anymore. It's actually not helping, right? And so we have to let go of how we define ourselves maybe, or we have to let go of that unhealthy coping skill and figure out other ways to manage our life. Does that make sense? I hope so, because in the way that you were kind of describing this, like, you know, I've stuck through it all. I also am curious, like, has he stuck through things with you too? Because relationships should be give and take. We're not keeping score, but there should be this kind of ebb and flow to someone giving, someone taking. And in narcissistic relationships, I find that a lot of times the one who is a narcissist is doing the majority of the taking and almost no giving. And so those are really my thoughts. I know it sucks and I'm sorry you're going through this, but just remember, we can't make someone want to get better. We can't control other people. I honestly believe the sooner we admit that to ourselves and realize that, the sooner we'll start to feel better and our relationships will also improve. I hope that helps. I know that can be difficult to hear, but I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Happy to talk about this more. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time.